Over the course of the semester here as artist in residence, I've had the opportunity to work with and just meet so many amazing people. And I've loved that. I've loved doing the performance tune-ups. I've loved meeting each and every one of you. But I've especially loved meeting and bringing in these amazing artists and people in the music industry to help you guys get a sense of what life is going to look like when you leave, what life could be like for you, and to just keep you guys dreaming, dreaming, dreaming big and dreaming loud. We have the honor of welcoming today an amazing person. I've met him, I don't even know how long I've known him. I'm looking at him, don't tell me. Well, maybe we'll talk about it later. I don't know how long I've known him, but I feel like I don't really know very much about him, and this is a great opportunity for me to bridge that gap and for you guys to learn about what he does in the industry. He's great. His name is Jon Bartlett. He is the head of Kelp Management, Kelp Records, and Megaphono, and I'm sure he does a bunch of other stuff, and we're gonna find out about it today. So can you please join me and welcome me, Jon Bartlett. I love your shirt. So thanks for coming. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Every time I see you, you're advertising something or somebody.
Yeah.
So
just a walking billboard
for all these different artists that you work with.
Merch. You know,
you gotta move merch, so you're buying it all.
Buying records, so I'm here to move merch.
So today, okay, well, I guess we'll get to this, to the magician here in a minute. But I really kind of wanted to know and get a sense of who you are, what your history is like, you know. I mean, I think a lot of us, when we meet people in the industry, we wonder how they got there. You know, were you a musician?
Yeah, I did music stuff for a while.
Really?
I guess Kelp started originally. I was in university. It was 1994, and I was putting a cassette.
Was anybody even born in 1994?
Oh yeah.
I was, obviously.
I know, how old are you? Yeah, so yeah, that's how it started. I wanted to kind of legitimize, you know, so I was talking to somebody, I was either writing or I was reading about Dave Clark, who was the drummer from the Rheostatics at the time, and he just said, oh, you need to start a label is just to have a name and an address, and you know, you can make a catalog number or whatever. And I was putting out a cassette of my own, like it was called Jon Bartlett was the artist. So I wanted to put something on it to kind of legitimize it a little bit. So I made up the label. I come from New Brunswick, so it was sort of a lame East Coast reference, Kelp, and then that was the start of that. So
but like, what were you even playing?
Everything. It's like recorded on a 4-track at home.
And you did all the music?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I had a band after that. We started, and I was really into Ween and I guess the Beatles and a bunch of other stuff. Probably Soundgarden, Flaming Lips. And then we just sort of started experimenting. I don't know, like on a 4-track, if any of you have played with one of these, they're kind of obsolete now. But you would actually just have a cassette you put in, and it would, you know, do 2 tracks on one side and 2 on the other. So we'd record drums and then flip it around. So you'd use the backwards drums, and then we'd put the drums through a flanger. We just like experimented and learned about recording, and it was a fun time. I think I actually did psychology. I started out in science, and then in biology. And everyone from my high school, if you did okay in school, you're basically on the path to becoming a doctor. And I fell off that path abruptly in second year zoology and biochem. And then I was in biopsych, and then I was just in psychology. And then I ended up with a degree in psychology with a minor in film. And all the margins of all my notes in all my classes were lyrics. I think I wrote 100 songs in those 4 years, and just got obsessed with music, and yeah.
And that was all here in Ottawa? Or?
This is all New Brunswick.
In New Brunswick
UNB,
still?
yeah. When I finished there, my band had been reviewed in Exclaim, which actually existed at that time as well, in print before they had a website. And I'd sort of forged this connection with someone from Exclaim and stayed in touch. I went tree planting that summer, I drove around the continent with 2 friends, and then moved to Toronto at the end of August. And basically showed up at the door at Exclaim in the fall of '97. And I don't know, I wouldn't go away, and eventually created this job. I was the guy who got the new hits. So I'd go to like Kingston, visit friends at Queens, and find cafes or record stores that didn't have new drop spots for the paper. So I'd spend a weekend there, and they paid me $5 for every new location. So I would spend a couple days there, hang out with friends, and walk around all day and find new locations. I'd go to Waterloo and visit friends there and hang out and do that. And I just kind of went around visiting all my friends that were at various universities and building, like the circulation, I think doubled at that time to, I don't know, 50 or 60,000. And then I became special projects manager. So I worked there for a couple years, wasn't really making enough money to exist in Toronto. And that was when I met Andrew Vincent. He was going to Waterloo, and I'd seen him play a solo show, and I was just like, whoa, who is this guy he only had 5 strings on a nylon guitar. He just never bothered to put the other one back on after it broke. He's playing these sappy, kind of really hard on sleeve songs, and it just blew me away. And I just said, hey, I'd like to help. And that was the first time that sort of worked with a different artist, like that I wasn't kind of involved in the band or whatever. So we recorded in his attic. I was up to a digital 8-track at this point, and still like not really a lot of knowledge about proper recording techniques or anything. I always just kind of figured it out. And then he put out this, we put out a thing called To Thine. It was a cassette. We'd take old king-size cigarette packages, and he would glue the cover over them, and that was like the package for the, yeah. And then we put it out on CD the year after that, and yeah, so that's someone that I still do stuff with today and do music stuff with in Ottawa, and that was like one of those, whatever, turning points.
But what year would that have been?
The cassette was 98, and then the CD was 99, and I moved here right around when we did the CD. I had a girlfriend here. She didn't want to move to Toronto, and so I moved here. That's a simple story. I was gonna go teach. I did an ESL certificate. I was gonna go teach English in Japan, and then I came here instead. So.
All right. It's so interesting because it's like I'm listening and
random?
I'm thinking, no, it's not random. I think it feels like it's just like, I think you can see like after, maybe at the time it might have seemed random, but I think you can look at the links after and see like, okay, you met Andrew then, and now you're working with him today in this capacity, and I don't know if you married that girl that you moved here for.
I did.
There you go.
We made a baby.
There you go. So I mean,
married.
Doesn't seem very random. Seem very random.
No.
It seems maybe like destined. But I mean, I think I'm just looking at like, at no point, it seems like you always knew you wanted to kind of work not just as a musician, but behind the scenes. Like, did you?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've always been an entrepreneur, or like at what point were you like, you know what? No, I actually want to do more than just be in the band.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point I probably took on, sort of that helper role and sort of figuring it out, whatever it was, like recording him, and then, sending, once we had a CD, like sending that out to campus radio and trying to get reviews and stuff like that. I mean, it was very different then. I feel like now there's so many more things that are difficult, but that stuff is easy. I mean, you can get the whole database of all the campus stations, in a click. You don't even have to mail stuff, and people don't want mail a lot of the time. You set it up on SoundCloud, and give people a stream and a download option, and I mean that has its challenges too, because people get hundreds of these emails and getting pitched every day. But in some ways, it's easier. It's easier to get things out there. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did play, like when I moved here, I had a couple bands, and I did continue to write songs and make music and, start jobs and then quit them to go back to focusing on music. And the first job I had here, I abruptly quit I don't know, probably 9 months later. And then I spent that month on the phone, because that's the way I used to book shows, just calling across Canada and the US to book this tour. And then eventually had this 3-week tour set up.
Again, for Andrew?
No, this is for my band.
Oh, okay.
At the time, yeah. It's like a rock band. I was trying to be Guided by Voices, trying to be The Who. And we toured. We did a 3-week tour to Victoria and back. And I took my my girlfriend's dad's minivan, and 5 of us in a minivan, and we had a drum kit and amps. So we had one of those roof things from Canadian Tire, and not very much space. But you'd wake up. I remember waking up. The first show was in Sudbury, and then I think was it 6 hours? We played in Timmins, which was a favorite place to go. And then played, got up early, 12 hours to Thunder Bay, played, got up early, 8 hours to Winnipeg, played, got up early, 8 hours to Saskatoon, played, got up early, 8 hours to Edmonton, played that night. And then I think we might have had a night off. But it was just exciting to be, I was 25, to be able to go and play music on tour. It was the only real tour I ever did, so I look back on it fondly. And I think at that time, it was, it didn't matter. There weren't any expectations about money or anything going well. I remember being paid after the 12-hour drive to Thunder Bay, a blue Laurier, a $5 bill at the end of our show, and kind of laughing, but just like,
thanks.
And the shows, there were good shows, there were bad shows. We got to play at 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis, which is like, connected to the First Avenue, the famous Prince Place. I don't know. That was a taste of touring, so now I always try to keep that in my head a little bit when I'm dealing with the artists I'm dealing with. It was 17 years ago, but still trying to remember like what it's like to be in the van and all the things that go along with it. Well, I hope it helps a bit, but I think I really enjoyed it and had fun. So sometimes I'm just like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah,
you're on the road, like playing music.
It's like that's okay for 3 weeks, but not for 3 years.
I know. Yeah. 3 weeks is different than 150, 180 days a year doing that. So it's hard.
So like, where did you go from there? Like, when you came back home, were you like?
I ended up I actually did an MBA in 2003 at the University of Ottawa and went away to Thailand to finish that on exchange.
With what in mind? Like, what were you thinking?
Business.
I don't mean it like,
I don't know.
What were you thinking?
Actually, at that time, I wasn't really thinking about business and music together. I'd always kept them separate. I was sort of more interested in the creative recording, helping bands a bit, but more sort of the helping bring albums together and then having a completed album and then celebrating that. And I was always an album, and still am like an album person, where I'll like press play and I'll listen through the whole thing and enjoy it as like, I guess I'm pretty traditional. And that's, just growing up, I was, listening to records and just constantly when I was a kid and scrolling my name in every LP my parents had and ruining them, scratching them. And I still think of music that way, like as an album, as like a finished kind of artwork or whatever. I didn't even know what you asked me now. Why did I do business? Why did I do business? I don't know. I think it was just had crappy jobs and wanted to have better jobs.
Did you feel like you weren't going to be able to make a living in music?
Well, I don't know that I expected to at that point. Like I was still kind of like dabbling and doing it on the side. And every job I took would eventually, I would lose interest and I would kind of go back into a music thing. Like I couldn't keep a job. My Myers-Briggs is ENFP, if you know what ENFP is.
Yeah, I think I'm INFJ or something,
So
what is ENFP
if you look that up,
yes,
it's someone who gets bored, who often has a hard time who like loses interest in something, who always has like new ideas and wants to like, so like it's like a creative, have to be creative, have to be like, I don't know,
constantly
hands-on in the mix.
Yeah.
Intuitive. Yeah, it's like extrovert, intuitive, sensing, feeling. And it's scary how like when I looked at that maybe 6 months ago for the first time in a while and reading it, and now I like send it. I actually sent it to everyone that works with me, and I'm just like,
this is me.
I'm sorry, but here's
why.
Here's some of the reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I worked for some nonprofits. I worked on energy campaigns and ran a battery recycling campaign. And then in 2010, we had done a little bit before that. We had done this ad placement. I got an email from someone in LA who was a music producer for an ad agency, and they wrote randomly and said, would Andrew Vincent be interested in writing a song for an Old Navy Christmas campaign? And I was like, what is this? And like looked this person up, because you could do that now easily with the Google. And yeah, it's like, okay, this person's real. They really want this. They had the money amount in there, which was, a lot of money. And next thing you know, I was on the phone with this woman and talking to her about it, and it still seemed like it was a real thing. And Andrew at this point was working on a PhD at York. And so I called him up and just said, look, this woman wants you to do this song, and it has to have "Get Your Fash On" somewhere in the song. How does that sound to you? It's this much money. And so he came back here. We recorded at the same studio at Little Bullhorn on Spruce Street, which is now next door to our office. And cranked out this song, and it ended up being a Old Navy Christmas campaign song in the end of 2006. And it was great. We just had her, you met her, right? She was just in town.
That lady? Oh, I never got to
Marissa,
meet
yeah,
her.
like she was in town just this past weekend for the Junos, and they got to meet for the first time, which was really fun. That experience was kind of an eye-opener. I was like, whoa, people do this? Like, this was kind of easy the way it all happened, and it paid off like a lot of credit cards that Christmas. Not to mention every backup singer. It was this isn't as common now, but it was a Screen Actors Guild, like a SAG. So it's the same union that, whatever, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, for the actors, yeah.
Like for Hollywood actors. So it has very good kind of rates and rules. And so everyone who sang backups, which was fashion, like, who came over, had a beer at lunch and did this at the studio, started receiving like this thick, envelopes of checks of like each person got like thousands of dollars that just showed up because we got residuals for that. So anyway, this whole thing was, wow, this is an exciting thing, exciting music thing I didn't know about. And so Megaphono was initially started as like a pitching vehicle, not a full publishing company, but like a broker more for music. And the idea was to take, with Ottawa, there's not a lot of music industry here, not a lot of infrastructure. There's all this great music. So we sort of became the Ottawa, pitching machine, where we make these compilations on Bandcamp and pitch to people. We put these things in DVD cases and we mail them out. And I started trying to hustle, going to LA, going to New York, meeting ad agencies, people in film and TV, and trying to push, Ottawa music into that. And we built some software as well, like a search engine to tag music and be able to, build playlists online and kind of a SoundCloud type of thing. So I've been doing music full time since then. That was 2010, and that was hard. It was a lot harder than the Old Navy experience. And at the same time, things started really changing in that world. I think producers and, well, people started to realize they could use indie music and get indie music a lot cheaper. Indie artists, their companies started to form where they would just have hard drives of music, and they would essentially give that, so they go to like NBC Universal, like, here's a hard drive, use whatever you want, no fees, but and you get a cut of the back end of the performance royalties, and just fill out the, send me the cue sheet info and let me know. So there's like retitling of songs, which is when they would take your song and change it to a different title so that you'd register it, say, in SOCAN. Any of the money that flowed because of that song would go separately. You know what I mean? So that company would continue to benefit from your song, years later. And I mean, it's really like, all this still exists now, by the way. And it's dirty and messy and it's ugly and it's gross and very unappealing. And as I dove into that world, sort of 2011, 2012, full on, I just realized I hated it. Like the selling of music in that way, and kind of it became the furthest thing from like where I started, which was the kind of more creative aspect. And and I was trying to sort out like, where's the intersection of, I have this business degree and all this business, some experience, some more knowledge about how business works. I love music. I love, artists, and trying to come from the artist perspective, having been one somewhat. And that sort of, that intersection in that sync world, and then that, pitching it just kind of, lost its sheen pretty quickly. And also it was brutal trying to like, make money. If people are giving away music for free, and retitling things, it's kind of hard to compete with that. So I think it was around that time I started, I was on the board of the Canadian Independent Music Association, CIMA, which is a great organization out of Toronto that exists. That's it does lobbying and helps. I mean, it's more focused, I say, on companies than maybe as much as artists themselves. But it was me kind of diving in, getting to know the music business more, starting to meet managers, and realize that a lot of the stuff that I've been doing for years was an actual job that existed that people got paid, commissions for, and that kind of grew in appeal, and it was at that time that I started sort of working on managing and learning about management. So the bands that, at the same time we were putting out bands on Kelp Records, and there was Adam and the Amethysts, a Montreal group, Hylotrons is a local band. And just started kind of learning, didn't go to school to learn about music management. I kind of knew enough about management, enough about how the music business worked, but also, the main thing really is trying to be that advocate for the artists and help get things done and put some systems in place, and find money. So we became pretty adept at, more than anything at the beginning, and still a big part of it is grant writing and kind of figuring out all the different funding systems and how to access them. OMDC, Ontario Media Development Corporation, was one that we started to get company funding for. I was traveling tons, because there's lots of support to do that through Factor and through OMDC, and it's still something that's a huge part of how I get around today, and building networks. I'd go to all these music showcase festivals, the Great Escape in Brighton, UK, Reeperbahn in Hamburg, Germany. I was going to South by Southwest pretty much every year at that point. And the Canadian ones as well. And when I finished the business degree before, I had focused on international management, and I was always passionate about just working working in other countries and learning about how things work elsewhere, and really kind of got enamored by Europe and all these countries that are right there that were all so distinctly different, and a lot of them are the biggest music markets as well. And just starting to gain some skills in that way and networks in that way, like learning how to, how would you approach Germany? And I got to know all these folks in Germany and how it worked there and how it was different. What's the UK like, and learning about the importance of radio there and how it's, really more important than the publicity part, which is what sort of used to here. And as I was ramping up and starting to work with different clients, the label stuff started to diminish as well as the pitching stuff. I mean, it was all kind of still happening, but this management was becoming more and more a part of it. And my focus was kind of how do you go everywhere? Like how do you create, or how do, like learning about different markets, how to enter them, but also the concept of trying to do a release on an international scale. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's led me to where I am now. I mean, we haven't, on the label side, we haven't put out a record in a few years. I don't know that I'll ever put a record out again. I don't love that process. It's,
What don't you love?
It costs a lot of money. It's way more fun to use other people's money to do it. I sort of think that putting out a record out, you need to, $25,000 to do it on a scale that is going to be relevant to make money back or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, pretty much no artist has that amount of money to throw in to do that. You can get it through funding and other sources if you're lucky, but it's super hard. It's really hard. It's hard to like make physical things and then sell them and have them and travel with them. It's I feel like you almost need to build yourself up to a point where that even makes sense now, where you've got enough of an audience and people coming out to shows where you would go and do big pressings of CDs and records to sell. And yeah, I mean, I have I've dived full on into management, as well as, Megaphono changing from this pitching thing, keeping the Ottawa theme, but it turning into all the learnings from going to these different music showcase festivals, and wanting to have this Ottawa push. And now it's become a music showcase festival in Ottawa. So we just did our third version. We bring people here from away, and the idea is to build those networks, and try to take advantage of some of the networks I've built over the years in different countries, and fly them here, put them up, and take them to shows and give them this kind of musical journey for a few days, and host them as best we can, within our means. We want. I've been to different events. I've been invited to some of these conferences and been lucky to go to them, and the things that you really remember that you take away is, I was in Belgium, for instance, once at a festival, and, every day at 5, everybody gathered and had drinks together, and then they went out to the festival, and we were sort of driven everywhere on a bus, and like, where do you need to go? You really took care of us. And I still, think back, and I still email with them and try to work with them and find ways to work together, and just the impact that had on me a few years ago. That experience, it might take, maybe we'll do something big together in a couple years. It might take several years of emails or whatever, but I know we'll probably do some kind of business together at some point, And we're finding the same thing with Megaphono now, bringing people here. We've also partnered with City Folk and Blues Fest. We partnered with NAC Presents a couple years ago, and just tried to be this sidecar to other festivals where we bring people here and host them, but we don't have to deal with the logistics of a festival. It's a lot more fun, actually. And it's great. I think we're, with some people, they come here and they spell Ottawa with 2 O's, and hopefully they leave, with 5 bands' names on their tongues and new music on their laptop or hard drive. And even this week, we hosted people during the Junos, and one of them is a UK radio presenter. She works with BBC introducing as well as Amazing Radio.
Oh, Shell.
And Shell Zenner you met, Yeah, she played Boyhood on her show yesterday. That's great. That's like the first UK radio play for Boyhood, and she hasn't even been there yet. So these things have, we're seeing bands getting signed. I mean, New Swears got signed to Dine Alone last year, and we kind of own that a little bit in our own way because that sort of came out of the show that they did at Megaphono. Somebody texted their friend at Dine Alone, and then they were on their Canadian Music Showcase a couple months later, and now they got signed to label and management deals out of that, and it works. Really believe in it. I think Canada is really limited. I mean, we're a small music market. There's a lot bigger music markets out there, and if you're going to exist as an artist and build a sustainable career, you have to immediately look beyond. What's exciting about right now is the Canadian government is very strong on, they're talking a big culture export game. They've put more funds into, like the conference that we did last week was mostly funded through the government and Factor, through, extra funds that they've put into exporting. And that was the whole idea. You have to bring people from outside of Canada, and that's what we did. And, we had people from Australia, Brazil, France, Germany, the UK, and the US all here hanging out for the weekend.
Great.
And it was great. And there's already signings and things happening out of it for the artists. So, yeah, management, export, Ottawa. The themes, I guess, or the themes of like what I've stumbled into after 23 years of putting out a cassette.
What would you say your philosophy's been like in you just kind of like taking things as they come and just looking for things that kind of still keep you excited? Because one of the reasons why I thought about bringing you, one of the reasons I thought about bringing you was because I just feel like you don't move like the Titanic, like you see that the industry is changing and you change quickly with it. And you're always kind of, okay, this is where I can find some traction here. Okay, now it's over here, and you're ready to move. And I think like that's one of the keys to your success if I look at it. But what would you say, like the keys to your success have been? Have I summed it up right, or?
I don't know.
Do you feel like
I feel like it's really been slow to figure things out. I was going to a lot of these events, and before I kind of figured out what I would do here, I knew there was a gap and that we should have some kind of vehicle that brings people here from away. We also did, part of this story is a few years ago with the Ontario Music Fund, the announcement of that. The first year we got some money to do research, and Andrew Vincent again worked on this paper that came out called Connecting Ottawa Music, and that's out there. You can download it and read it. And it really was trying to take a picture of where we were in Ottawa with music. There's a lot of things that we knew, kind of playing in bands and doing things in Ottawa for a long time, that we don't have a lot of infrastructure. There aren't a lot of managers, labels, people that booking agents that live in Ottawa that can help, like people can learn from as they're coming up. Venues still continues to be a challenge, but that was something that came out loud and clear there as well. And as well, just the presence of, having having an event or something to rally around, as well as music strategy was something that was talked about. So, and an organization. So in that time, the last few years, we've formed Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, which sort of formed out of some of the interested people who are involved in that. We have Megaphono, which is a music showcase festival, which is contributing to that. The mayor just announced last weekend at the Junos that we'll be embarking on an Ottawa music strategy, and that's after 2 years of having this paper in hand, this report, and kind of pushing. There's people like Kwende Kafense at the City of Ottawa that have really been grinding inside and trying to make things happen and bringing together different stakeholders. And it's exciting. I think the next couple of years are going to be really interesting, trying to For those of us that were involved in the Junos, I was on the executive of the host committee, and my main reason for doing that and spending whatever hundreds of hours volunteering all year was wanting something to be left behind. Like I feel like the 2012 Junos, I was sort of on the outskirts of it and watched it, but it was hard to see Ottawa in it, like local artists. And when it left, it was hard to know like what impact it had other than, oh, that happened. This time, I mean, I feel, we did have that announcement with the music strategy. We had the micro grants, which, I mean, I don't know if any of you were involved in them or went to events, but the OMIC administered these micro grants. We put $30,000 into events and did at least one event in every ward in the city and really tried to engage people on the ground. And I think if you look back on what the events were, it was very diverse musically. I think it engaged a lot of different communities. It was, it may have been a smaller connection, but it was some kind of connection to the Junos as well, and the feeling like people were a part of it. And I mean, I get excited about, I don't know what that's going to look like in a couple of years, but maybe that will have spurred on people to get more involved with music. Maybe once we have, the LRT built, like there's going to be more opportunities for people to move throughout the city and do things as well. And I think it's going to better connect the suburbs. Like I get excited about people from the outskirts being able to come downtown to shows and vice versa, like venues and in places that are harder to get to now, you could just jump on and be there in 20 minutes. We've seen that in the past as transport systems get better in cities, and that can have after effects for music scenes as well. And yeah, this conference, I mean, that was like, that whole Ottawa Music Summit at the Junos was that was my main focus, is like, let's get people here. There's never been an international delegation that's been brought in for the Junos, which
seems surprising.
I don't understand. Yeah. So it was the idea of bringing people here from the weekend, so they could experience it as well. And I mean, I think there are benefits for Ottawa, of course, and getting to meet those people, but also benefits for, the industry. Like anyone who had any like manager like me who had an artist showcasing maybe at Juno Fest could, pull them onto that as well. So, I feel like, I hope when we look back on it, there'll be a lot more legacy out of these Junos than we had in the past, and definitely excited for this music strategy. I think one of the big gaps, or another of the big gaps that we've had here, is there's not a lot of connections between private businesses and music. I feel like in Toronto or Montreal, there's a lot more private industry, of course, and we are more of a government town than they are. But there's always entrepreneurs who are rich that will throw money at risky, random things, and music is always considered a risky thing. We don't have that here. You don't see that. You don't see that happening usually. Like you don't see that money thrown into crazy ideas around music. We're super fortunate to find, like honestly, I've been here 18 years and I've tried with high tech and tried to talk to companies and gone into like the Shopify's or whatever and tried to like engage and like Lixar is the first company that have sort of come out and they support Halifax Pop Explosion, and they said, here's a bunch of money, like we love music, we want music to be a part of what our employees experience and have them realize that music's important. We want to they have a calendar when you walk in and you can see like some of them are music shows coming up like on a screen when you walk into their office, and they they're in. They're just like, Megaphono is exactly the kind of thing we want to support. So they supported us, and we also decided one thing, like another of those gaps is that like there aren't enough professional development opportunities for artists, or that that idea, there's not enough infrastructure here, so we have to bring it in. So we created something called the Megaphono Artist Retreat, and actually this weekend is the first one that's happening. So every delegate we brought, we asked them at the end of the Megaphono weekend in February, who, what artist would you choose that really impressed you, that you think has promise, and maybe you met them and you think could benefit from a weekend totally focused on their music career. And Trails, who turns 18 later this month, was the one that was selected. So she's going into a place called Port William Sound this weekend, which is a studio that Jonas Bonetta, Evening Hymns is his artist name he works under, has. It's out in Mountain Grove near Charlotte Lake. And they're spending the weekend. We met with her and decided, her biggest gap, like her biggest need right now was recordings. She'd been doing some home recording, and she was interested in working with somebody else. Oh, there it goes. It's really the end of the semester, the term. It's happening.
We're going to continue.
They're going to work on recording for 4 days. She has label interest out of Megaphono, people seeing her. There's a lineup waiting for her music, and she's going to have the best recording she's had to date. And we're gonna sort of help mentor or whatever, and see where it goes. And that's super exciting. To like take that the connections that were made from Megaphono, but take it further to actually like have a tangible outcome out of it, and hopefully get it in the right hands and help launch something. So
it sounds kind of like back into that whole idea of leaving a legacy. So like the Junos, you were looking at what the legacy would be. And when I look back at when I would say that I kind of met you first, really, would be at that meeting where we all came in the community and sat down and talked about like what Ottawa didn't have, like what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that was
I don't know how many years ago, maybe 4?
I think it was end of 2013. I think it was October 2013. Yeah. Like Quende pulled together this meeting of music people, and out of that was a real something that kickstarted a lot of things. And I was shocked that someone was thinking about that worked at the city.
Right.
Because all my lines into the city previously before that were kind of not fruitful in terms of getting things going on the music side. So I was blown away that someone was actually thinking about music, how to support the music industry, and pulling together a real diverse group of, instrument makers and just like nonprofits and artists and
programmers, everybody.
Yeah. When I got that email, I just immediately called them. Like, what are you? Who are you? What are you doing?
Right.
And it's great. Yeah, I still, talk to him on a weekly basis.
And I would say like everything that you described, like we have more of as part of that legacy from like part of that meeting and the Ottawa the strategy, and then I'm looking here at just like the legacy that you're leaving just with all the work that you're doing. I mean, it's really exciting to see. The city looks different to me. The music industry looks different to me. I look at when you talk to musicians today, do you feel like people are still feeling like they need to leave, or do you feel like they're now thinking, okay, I can stay, I can make a career here?
I don't know. I would hope, obviously that's part of the goal and that's why we've been trying to engage the city, engage companies, engage anyone that'll listen that can help the cause. And that's part of it, is like how do we build an Ottawa music scene where people want to come here to work, because it's not the cheapest city to live.
No.
Yeah. And a lot of people I know live in Hull. It's like half the price and it's right there.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad idea, right? It's
right
right there.
Take note.
That's all part of it. We create this environment that's supportive. If we start to create a more supportive environment for venues through trying to change bylaws and trying to like incent people to open venues, reducing the costs on spaces or leases, or maybe having something that allows them to, ramp up ideas faster or access funding to do that, or loans. We're working on all those fronts, and part of that, that music strategy is going to identify sort of more of a roadmap of how to do that, and those specific actions that need to be taken. I think that'll that'll build on that Connecting Ottawa Music Report we did before.
Yeah,
so.
it looks like you have like a definite long range goal. You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, a long range goal would be that we wouldn't have to say we don't have enough venues or booking agents or labels or, we know we have lots of great festivals.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We have
Summertime
music
here is
festivals.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. What happens
artists
the rest of the year?
rely on that. If you're an artist, like what festival gigs can we get? We applied to Blues Fest. We got a good payday, or the Folk Fest or the Jazz Fest. But
that's summer though.
Those are festivals.
Yeah, and that's
and
summertime.
those are totally different. Those than the things you need to, you need to leave Ottawa. You can be based here, but you are going to need to leave Ottawa if you're an artist, whether or not you live here. You're going to need to go tour. And it's going to be, as far as we can see in the coming years, it's going to be a major part of unless you have some magical thing that happens where you, maybe you do composition on the side and for animation like people do in town, and maybe that becomes a big part of your income. But for the most part, if you're an artist, you'll probably be a touring artist, and you'll have to leave and figure out who to put in place on your team to help you do that in a way that makes money. So, that's our hope in bringing people here, but also creating an environment that's where companies would want to be based and where we would grow. I'm going to lunch after this with someone who's a pretty reputable artist manager who just moved here, which is super exciting for me to have someone else to hang out with. That is someone who I always called in Toronto for advice and bugged for, everything, especially figuring out U.S. tax stuff, which is insane.
Why do you think he came here?
His wife got a government job.
Once again, these women.
The wives with government,
the wives have lots
the partners with government jobs.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
They're the,
But it would be amazing for one day for them to be coming, because this is a hub, this is a center, a viable place to make music into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can, there's no reason to leave. There's appeal of certain things, like being in LA in February is nice. It'd be nice to do that every year.
Yeah.
Or just go there sometimes when you're shoveling, and if we're shoveling later today. But it's nice to be here. It's nice to be in kind of a smaller center. It's nice to, the actions and things that are done seem to have a bigger impact too, you know what I mean? To be able to actually have an impact on the community. And I've been here 18 years. There's no reason to leave. It sucks that we're 2 flights away from LaGuardia now as of last month.
Oh, really?
Rather than 1. But besides that, you're 2 flights from everywhere pretty much. And it's fine. You can do everything on email or on the phone. You can be anywhere, and you see people. Yeah, people like me that are music managers that are based in smaller places and backwoods places, like Wilco's managers in a tiny town. The manager for Basha Boulad and Sufjan Stevens, and she's just in some tiny town in South Carolina. It doesn't really, you have to leave, you have to travel, you have to go out in the world and see people and do things and go to the big shows for your artists, but you can live wherever. It's nice. It's nice here.
It sure is. It sure is.
I like the winter. It's fine. Shoveling
I wouldn't go that far.
Shoveling is
It's good for the.
It's good, yeah.
So okay, speaking back again, I don't know. I love this idea of legacy, so I'm wondering, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In Ottawa.
Okay, as long as your wife keeps her job here.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope that we have grown, grown a management roster. I hope we grow the festival. to me, it's about like how many people can we bring here? We're around 35 now, but wouldn't it be great if we could bring like 100 people to Ottawa in the first week of February? Like it's hilarious to do it then, but it is kind of, it's sort of become the best week to do it because there aren't any big events in the rest of the world, like music conferences or whatever that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one in Sweden now so we have to get out in front of it, but yeah, it's great. And I think, we are what we are. It's, we do winter properly. It's kind of a novelty for some people. Some of the LAers might whine, but it's different. It's like interesting. And I think it's unique, and people have really loved coming here and enjoyed it. I think we do have that, we're kind of like a small town. We've got that kind of small town feel. It's easy to get around, in the summer we'll drive people up to Wakefield and jump off the bridge and swim, and just like there's, we drove people up to the woods or took them to the spa last week. It's an interesting place to go, and we kind of have access to a lot. So it's easy to do that kind of event here and host people and have an impact. And I mean, we have like the caliber of the artists and the bands that are here. I mean, ever since I moved here, it was always like that. We always, I think, bat above our weight in terms of quality of the artists. And I think it's been really great to see that echoed by the people that come here. When you have Sub Pop sort of super excited about artists and going back with a list and then following up and asking you about them later, like that means something to me. We had artists, we had the head of Iceland Airwaves here, and then 2 artists were booked for the festival the next week. That's like one of the main cool festivals of the world right now, Iceland Airwaves. That never would have happened if you didn't come here. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm excited for more bands like New Swears to get signed, to go out in the world, to build a thing. Like their record's coming out soon, and I think that they're going to do really well. And I think we'll look back even next year, and then people will be like, "Wow, they're from Ottawa. Like, what's Ottawa? What's Ottawa? Who else is from Ottawa?" And start to look. And we've had this amazing, punk garage scene for a long time. Ottawa Explosion is this festival that happens in the summer that, people travel from away to come to it. They will probably grow or see more growth, I hope, just from the after effects of the New Swear's success, and maybe more people start to get interested and sign those bands here in town. Who knows, right? There's so many, like you just kind of fish and we try to choose people to come here that are interested in emerging music or more like on the discovery side. We don't need to bring people here who have an attitude or whatever. Like we want people who are gonna do things with the music if they like it. And so, yeah, I don't know. You asked me about 5 years from now. I don't know, more of that. I hope 100 people are coming to Ottawa in February, 2022. It's crazy that that's going to be a year in 5 years. Yeah. And and that we have like saying Ottawa, if you're in other cities of the world, to music people will have relevance. That would be cool.
You make me so excited. I feel so excited.
Alanis. We don't have to say Alanis. And I love Alanis, but
that's it though. And Paul Anka.
Yeah.
Paul Anka. Come on, Paul Anka. And Alanis. That's it.
He's not nice, is he?
I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, when you think Ottawa, I think that's the only thing.
The guys get shirts. Paul Anka. And then we can talk about Paul Anka.
I'm nervous now.
Okay.
I'm nervous. No, but honestly, talking to you makes me excited about my city.
Good.
Seriously.
Me too.
Because like I just see like it's infectious. Like there's like a lot of you have a lot of love for the city. And
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, the creative community is really interesting right now too. I think we've seen cool things happen with restaurants and food. I mean, 10 years ago there was
This wasn't an eating mecca. No.
Yeah, and we are like go travel away and eat places, and then you realize, wow, we have an awesome restaurant scene. Now there's like beer. I mean, we have like there's so many
craft
breweries.
beer. Yeah.
There's little things like that are happening in different scenes that have some link back to creative community. And I think it's very like because we are sort of small, towny. Everyone knows about everything too. Also, like everyone goes to everyone's shows, as well. So that's great. I hope we don't lose that. And I think the other, the beers, the restaurants, or whatever, everything feeds into one another. Like you support the restaurants support music. Like everybody loves music. Like music's the coolest. Like music's the coolest thing that everyone wants to be a part of. So as we grow that, all that other stuff will grow too. And yeah, everyone's waiting for it to happen. It's starting. It's just continuing to gather those people together, letting them find a place in this music strategy, like engaging the people, we're working on engaging tourism more, and I think they're starting to get it. But yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if tourism brought in, a junket of a dozen journalists to go along with, with Megafono or something, and we could get, you see our bands written up in the Guardian or whatever, or the New York Times, and yeah, I mean, that stuff has an effect.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to look really different in 5 years. I think it's already looks very different from 2 years ago.
Huge.
So
huge.
5 years.
And you're a huge part of that.
2.5 times that,
Yes.
Yeah, for the mathletes.
Are there mathletes? I'm not one. We're gonna do the final part of our interview series, which is like just these big questions that you kind of give like these quick answers to, like that Proust interview.
I'm always bad at that.
Are you?
Yep. This is gonna be terrible.
Okay. All right.
I'll try.
Okay. All right. No, this is gonna be so easy. Like so easy. Like this one. What's your biggest fault?
Oh, ENFP.
I love that.
Yeah. I have a strong administrative person now. I think,
For a reason.
details. I get bored on
the details. Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you love most about yourself?
I don't know.
Pick something.
I'm running 5 times a week now.
That's pretty
Kept
awesome.
it up for
a few
almost
years.
2 months.
No,
not a few years.
I feel like you told me about it.
I talk about it every day.
Got it.
I'm so proud of it.
Okay. All right. So you love that you've been running for 2 months. What's your definition of success?
I don't know. Like the obvious answer is not having to stress out about money, but that's also a lame answer. I have a great wife and child. I feel, is that success? I'm happy every day.
Those are all
pretty
super good.
I have a pretty good life.
Like that's like check.
I have a pretty good life. I can't complain.
Nice. What do you envy?
People that don't have to worry about money. People that don't have to write grant reports.
Yeah, seriously.
Is that? Yeah.
I join you in that.
Yeah.
If anybody is looking for a job, grant writer, man, because none of us want to do it.
Yeah, it was actually a big part of as the management stuff started, and we were kind of in this weird in-between with like, what's Megafono gonna be? Pitching music is sad. Being a record label is hard, Why did I just spend 25 grand on putting this record out, and then the band didn't tour? We wrote a lot of grants for people, and yeah, it's fine. You learn a few of those. People need help doing it, and now we're at the point where we did it for a while, and that was like a big part of our thing, and now it's like there's no time because the management stuff is so crazy.
What percentage of your time is management? What percentage
70.
is and Megafono is 30 or
Yeah.
20, and then 10% doing other stuff?
Volunteer and waste,
Sitting on boards
lunch.
and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 70. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, grant writing, that's a whole other session. I mean, it's incredible that we have these things.
We're so lucky. Like other people from other countries are always like, wow, they give you money?
Yeah, they hate us. But it's super crucial. And I've actually been pitched, like lately, you know, like different American artists, like sort of needing management, and some artists I was surprised, you know, just like pretty great art. Like a lot of it is like Andy's success out there and people hearing him. And I just like, I don't even know what I would do. Cause the biggest, these are not quick questions, eh? The biggest problem, I think, with an artist is like, how do you create cash flow at the beginning? Because they're, you know, it's sort of destitute situation. You need to go away to do things that cost money. And I don't know how you do that with
an American artist that can't access the funds.
Yeah. Anyways, grant writing, learn it. Be expert.
Master it. And get ready for when it changes, because it changes, like,
learn
you know.
Radio Star Maker, learn the Ontario Music Fund. We're so lucky to have these things. And there's, you know, the Ottawa stuff, the Ontario Arts Council, now Canada Council. It's crazy.
Can like the regular artists access the OMDC?
It's hard. That wouldn't be my starting point. You have to have financials that you submit. It's actually pretty stringent. I just mean like you could write them for other people too. But learning all those things is, And
I think it teaches you how to look at the business side of it. It teaches you how to keep your business in order, how to keep good records, because in order to like.
Yeah, read the qualifications for the Ontario Music Fund for, say, Music Futures, and then your brain will change in the way you set yourself up. And it's actually not a bad thing. Like maybe you will have, you know, better record keeping and things like that. And because I'm me before, that was not a thing. And it's become, it's super.
All of a sudden you care about receipts.
We have to have notice to reader statements from an accountant to even qualify for the, you know, the funding that we get. So it keeps you in line.
What decision did you make that you really celebrate?
Not putting records out, I guess, or I don't know, starting to manage, like getting like, So deciding management was a job that I should do.
You had said that kind of like before, like the not putting records out. So for you, it's like, it's not that you're telling them not to make music, but just like as a manager.
Not being a label. I think being a label or like stop, or I mean, I guess we've stopped. You know, haven't said Kelp Records is dead, but the website looks pretty dead right now. The management one is a little more current.
So for you, like, that's not where the money is.
Just don't have an interest in it. I think if I had a crazy bankroll, it would be fun to do something, but do like a niche thing where, you know, maybe you just put out, you know, like I'm interested in records. It doesn't seem like it's a real release if it's not an LP to me, because I'm from ancient civilization.
Me too.
You know, I would love to like do limited pressings of LPs or something. You know, I don't know. I don't know how it would make sense to do it as a label, but all the stuff about like all the things that go into like pressing and manufacturing and like all these things, it's way more fun to be on the other side where you're like working with the artists on the art and choosing, you know, working on the sequence. Like I love sequencing records. I'm obsessed with the sequence of an album and what tracks don't make it and all that, and trying to be involved in those decisions. And before, as a label, a lot of times, like it got to the point where I was getting stuff that was like, here's the record, it's finished, and becoming less involved in that creative stuff. Not to say that some labels aren't like that. Like I mean, Daptone, they like record all the stuff, and they're kind of deep into everything, full service. It's kind of an old school. We see that less and less with labels now, I think. Anyways, I don't know.
So the model's changing. Like, how are artists actually? I know I'm asking questions, but how are the artists making money now?
How are artists making money in general?
Yeah, no.
Well, I think touring is
Touring's
the main thing for most people, right?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah, I think unless you're a huge artist, and they still tour, but they don't have to tour as much. If you're a huge artist, you're going to get syncs in film and TV. You're going to get radio play and royalties back from that. You're going to sell, records and have preferred racking at the record stores that exist. If you're the other 99%, you're going to be on the road 150 to 200 days a year trying to build an audience. I mean, really, I think with the goal of touring less later, Andy's next record, he'll be able to go tour less, more focused, bigger shows instead of the insanity that he's lived the last 3 years. So, yeah, I think touring is the most important thing and also the hardest thing to do, and breaks artists, breaks. There's a lot of bands that quit around the second record because they just realized that there's no end to this crazy schedule, and they're not, maybe not interested in travel or whatever.
Maybe they're ENFPs.
Doing it. Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like my ENFP-ness made touring more appealing, but
because it changes every day. Every day is a different experience and adventure.
Totally.
Yeah, but you didn't continue.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so what did you believe about yourself in the music industry that you no longer believe? Like when you started, you were like, oh, and now you're like, oh no.
I don't know.
Do you feel like you came in with a really positive view of the industry?
Yeah. You asked me what I believed about myself, though.
Well, yourself and the music industry. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess, I don't know. I mean, maybe there was, I don't know if I ever thought it was going to be sustainable for me as an artist. Maybe there was some glimmer of that at one point. I certainly don't believe now. In terms of the music industry, I don't know. I think I probably had more of a limited regional view of it initially, and that being big in Canada was important, and now I could absolutely care less. Canada's completely irrelevant to me. And it happens later. If you do well elsewhere, Canada will care.
Yeah. I've seen
I believe that strongly.
I believe that strongly too.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I think don't look at Canada, except for maybe a place to live, but don't worry about it. Because it'll come if you do well elsewhere. I mean, it's fine, it's close. It's obviously close to tour and it'll cost a bit less, but you can't think of it as your end goal. You can't rely on it. There aren't enough people that are close together that want to buy things. You need to go out into the world, spread forth and figure, test and probe and try different things and figure out what countries make sense, and then figure them out, figure out everything about them, who's there, who's the publicist, who are the radio people, who are the promoters, how do you build there, then do it.
That was going to be one of my, what were your words, or your final words of advice for the students?
My final words of advice. Yeah, go forth.
Go for it.
I don't know. It's not going to happen fast. I've been doing this for 23 years, and I'm still not sure if it's a sustainable career for me. But I think it will be. I think it's fine. Yeah. I think it's going to be fine.
Or just marry somebody that works in the government.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll never send her this link. Yeah, I mean, I just think world, don't think, think local, but think world, and figure out what's going on in the rest of the world. There's a whole world out there. It's super exciting. It's way more interesting to tour in Europe, where there's still a reverence for artists and music.
They love music.
People buy things.
Like on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you don't even have to just tour on Thursday to Sunday. Like you can actually have a concert. Like in the week.
Small club show in Auckland, New Zealand, the door is $30 a person, and you can make what you would make if you filled Barrymore's here. So there are markets out there that exist. It's like you don't get to them fast or whatever, but and also learn how to get a US visa. Those are really fun.
You mean a P2 or just like the regular, like to cross over for one time?
Oh, like a P.
An O1, an O1.
Well, an O1 is, yeah, that's great once you can get those.
Extraordinary alien.
Plan your visa.
That's what they're called?
Plan your visas well in advance.
Well in advance. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't tried to cross since the new administration, so I'm not quite sure how much they love.
It's more difficult, I think. Anyway, go to Europe.
That's where the music is.
Go to Europe.
Go to Europe.
No visas, no problem.
I wanted to let you guys ask questions. My gosh.
What is your...
Anybody have a question?
I talked too long.
No, you didn't talk too long. It's just like, I always think like, are we really gonna have enough time? Like, and we always have like so much to talk about it. Like not just you, but anybody that comes in. I love these. And I love that you guys come and stay. And I don't know if you have questions. This person is obviously a fount of knowledge. So he's asking about how to compose for animation and how to break into it.
I mean, I would connect with some of the people that are doing it locally. Bartmart is a company where they've got people there it's like an audio company where they work. Matt We Met just got nominated for an Emmy for like his work in composing, which is incredible.
That's amazing.
Jeremy Fisher is into that and does that. He's a local artist, singer-songwriter, but he built a studio in his backyard in Centertown and now does a lot of that work as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess like Sasha Gabriel, Sasha Hebert, who's involved in one of the panels last week. She's done some of it. She's done a little bit of that as well and wants to do more of it, but she's like immensely talented at it. I mean, it's like talk to those people, find them, connect with them. I can connect you. I don't even know how Matt got started in it. I think Dave Cooper was an animator from here, and this was a show that he was working on, and he's in LA. It's just these people that leave that that people stay connected to. Yeah, we have a strong, there's like a whole animation scene here. We have an international animation festival. I mean, I would connect there as well with them, and they have all these producers and connections and people. I would go to it and hang out, get the pass, go hang out the whole festival, get to know people. I mean, it's all that. You can email, 500 people, or you can go hang out with 5 at one of those events, and those 5 people are probably going to have more impact or effect. And yeah, I don't know. Meet people that are doing it, figure out how they did it, and then go do that. Copy what they did.
That's amazing advice for like anything you're doing, Yeah. Nice. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I have a question about, you mentioned hard drives and people selling, like not even selling, giving the music. It's the first time I've ever heard of it, to these corporations that they'll rename it and then use it. I just was kind of like, whoa, that actually exists. How did that even come about, or like how do you protect against that? Like if you're...
Well, I mean, you have to sign something that says that you would do that. And I will admit that I did that once for a couple records that we put out. And I talked to the artist and just said, this is an experiment, and I didn't know anything. This was in 2010, and we had our child, and then it was early 2011, and my wife was off all year, and I said, let's go to LA for all of February, and so we did, and it was great. And I just drove around all day and met people, and I met these people at this company, and they slapped music into these different shows. And so I was really wary of this whole, we didn't sign away kind of like back ends to things permanently, but it was this retitling thing. And I'm like, what is this? And so we did it for a few records. And yeah, like the deal eventually ended or whatever, but then last year, that show, Halt and Catch Fire, which is an awesome show on AMC, there was like a Recoiler song on it, and none of us knew about it. It just like appeared, and the singer started getting emails like, hey, you're on the show, because it was like a pretty popular show for a bit, and and it was those guys from like 2010 that had retitled the song and ended up in this thing, and it was free, and there's like no, money coming back from it or whatever. Anyway, know that it exists. There are companies that do this, that sort of prey on people that are dumb, like I was, and don't, we had a music supervisor panel at City Folk this year, and they were all giving like, it was the top 10, is anybody at that? No? Top 10 like pieces of advice. And that was one of them. It's like, don't deal with these companies. Don't retitle. It's like, it's like a scam, pretty much. It exists. There's companies that do it. There's a lot of like free, the whole idea of we'll take your music and we'll just put it into whatever and we'll pitch it for free. And I mean, you know what? Some people have made money that way, because if it's a huge show that's like, MTV or whatever, and the music just ends up on it, there will be, eventually thousands of dollars in royalties or whatever. But there's also companies that will take it and retitle it and do all this other stuff, and it's weird. I don't know. Just know that it exists, and know. I mean, you would have to sign things like, I mean, I'd say always have lawyers look at things you have to sign, even though it costs money. That's something I've learned over the years. Like talk to entertainment lawyers. Like, I don't know if Byron was ever here, but Byron Pascoe is one in town. And
No.
Edwards, PC Law, they do a lot of work in film, but also in music. And I mean, have someone look at contracts, because like you can change. I've learned over time that it's amazing what they can do, and just by changing or rejigging a few terms here and there, I mean, you can get amazing contracts that everybody's happy about.
Good. Yeah, that's good to know. So what do you have to do to be seen in Megaphone, or what do you need to be doing to be noticed and get accepted? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, some of the questions that are in the forum have to do with, shows that have been played and shows that have been played out of town, and, things like that. I think it's, it's harder because there's like, we're trying to keep the same number of artists, and we did bring in more artists this year than we had in the past. So the Toronto-Montreal corridor, for various reasons. But like a lot of it's to not have the same, artists playing from year to year. I don't know. I think it's like being out there and doing stuff. Definitely the O-Mic connection now is one that is pretty strong. Like O-Mic is its own entity and is a nonprofit, but pretty much everyone involved in Megaphono is involved in O-Mic as well. So, if there are artists that are playing these events or at these events or that engage and involved, I would just say go to everything and be at everything. And don't be afraid to like send stuff throughout the year too. like submitting music or whatever. I don't know if that's a good answer. It just, you know, every year it's different. There's like the venues that are there, trying to program shows and do shows that make sense, and also worrying about getting people to them. So not just relying on the festival traffic, but having each show exist on its own to sell tickets and that kind of thing too. So I think showing a history of selling tickets or doing shows or yeah, all that stuff kind of helps.
Good.
If that helps.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're at our end, but this is the last interview in the series for the semester. But I had such a blast, and I'm thanking you for coming and honestly reinvigorating my excitement about our industry, about our city. I hope everybody, you know, feels like they got something out of today. I certainly did. And thanks so much for being willing to come up here and meet with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody.
Thanks for having me.